How's it going, everybody? TheMythicalPickle here, and welcome to Cyberpunk 2077. In a world where metal courses through the veins of men, women, and babies alike, there are samurai that lurk from the shadows, ever patiently awaiting their chance to strike. Using blades forged in fire and factory, they won't rest until every last drop of blood is spilt, and their eternal debt is repaid. And then there's me. That's right, today we will find out if you can beat Cyberpunk 2077 as a samurai. Now without further ado, let's lay down some ground rules for the challenge run this time around. To start off, we have some standard rules that are likely to be seen in future challenge runs. That is, I must stay in character with all dialogue choices and fraction decisions. These weighted decisions are mostly made in the third act, but there are a few opportunities sprinkled throughout that give one a chance to uphold a samurai's code of honor. But you'll see that a bit later. Also, no perks, cyberware, throwables, or anything that will deal direct damage, as I will need to rely on the weapons I am restricted to throughout the run. And last, but certainly not least, I must beat the main quest. Now for the more unique rules, as the title suggests, we'll be playing the role of a cyber samurai, meaning we'll be restricted to using only katanas to take down enemies. Now, there are a few exceptions to that rule that we'll be forced to make, but we'll cover that when we get there. And since Cyberpunk's clothing system is almost entirely cosmetic, we won't need to worry about any armor restrictions this time around, but as you'll see, I did try to stick to the samurai theme with all my clothing choices. Now without much more setup to do, I selected the street kid background as I felt that was the best option for an aspiring samurai, at least compared to the other two options. Then I quickly spammed the randomized character button like I was trying to skip an unskippable ad. Yeah, that'll do. Then I began speccing this natural-born warrior to reflect his katana-wielding abilities. That means I poured as many points as possible into reflexes, as that'll ensure I have a good starting base damage with all bladed weapons, including katanas. Then I put just as many points into body, as that determines our max health and health regen speed. Now with the character building out of the way, I was finally released into the wild. Now, this early part of the game is known as the prologue, and there's really not much that changes from playthrough to playthrough. So, we're gonna run through it pretty quickly. First, I reset my nose. Quickly talked to old Captain Kirk. Got a free car ride from an old buddy, although it started to feel more like a hostage situation. Then I proceeded with the assignment, Grand Theft Auto. Though a fellow Choomba, Jackie, was trying to do the same thing, got caught, got uncaught, then boom, instant friends for life.
Getting one of my good feelings.
Now this is where things began to escalate in difficulty, as the first true mission requires you to take out an entire den of scavs, but at this point there was no chance I was going to get my hands on a katana. So, I did what any true gamer would do and sicked Jackie on them while crouching around the corner until it was safe to come out. This proved a lot more difficult, or I suppose a better word would be extremely long and grueling, as Jackie got to the point where he'd only get a few shots in and then be downed again for quite a bit. Nevertheless, Jackie pulled through and cleared out all of the scavs. And I even got a special option I'd never even seen before that had me crawl around the side vents to distract the mini-boss while Jackie hit his ass like a freight train. With the scavs cleared, the quest was just about over. We saved the corpo, took a short drive through the city, and even got to see some expert level driving skills. When I finally got home, I took a nap, then awoke finally free from the shackles of the tutorial phase. With Act 1 already begun, I was already capable of crafting a basic katana, but I needed some crafting supplies to do so. So, I made like a shinobi master and slid through every NCPD spot, stealing the chest loot, attacking no one, and pissing off everyone. I was even lucky enough to loot this mask, which I took as a good omen to our samurai's perilous journey ahead. Now that I was finally able to slice and dice, the next steps were simply following the bouncy ball, meeting up with the main Ripper Doc, Vic, sharing a very familiar car ride with Dex, discussing the details of the heist with Evelyn and Judy, and finally, at long last, it was time to retrieve the Robo-Dog from the grasp of the cyber dumbasses. I was looking forward to this, as it'd be my first chance to start slapping around some bad guys with my new blade. But when I arrived to the point of confrontation, I found that the only way to initiate combat was to shoot Not Brick in the head through a dialogue option.
Bang.
And since that's against the rules of this challenge run, I was forced to shell out 10,000 smackaroons to the metalhead and was calmly escorted out of the building. Nope, no bladed fun for me this time. Oh well. I continued on with the story, talking to the crew about the heist and getting into Arasaka and yada yada yada. Now is where things get more interesting. After Mr. Arasaka was murdered by his own son right before our eyes, I took that as a golden opportunity to help myself to one of their family heirlooms, which happened to be Satori, our first of many iconic katanas. This little upgrade was exactly what I needed to tip the scales in my favor. This was just in time too, as a epic battle was about to commence. Ah, what a pleasure it is to practically teleport around spamming left click. With most of Arasaka's soldiers now taking a dirt nap, I escaped out of the building into the Delamain taxi with Jackie, though, unfortunately, this is where things took a turn for the worst. Cyberpunk just loves their interactive cinematic cutscenes, and this was one of the first that we were going to see through this run. As the second we hit the road, we were tailed by 3 big-ass flying robots, and they armed me with nothing but a pistol. So, I just sat there waiting for these robots to lose interest and/or crash themselves like the van from earlier, but unfortunately that time never came. I tried everything I could possibly think of to get out of this battle, but every path led to a fiery demise, so this is one of those spots where I'm gonna have to make an exception like I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So, with the robot bros gunned down, I was forced to watch my best buddy bite the big one, then take the computer chip, the entire reason for the heist, and stick it in the back of my head, only to be shot in the head by the very guy that hired us both. Yeah, awesome. Then out of nowhere, I started to live out what was seemingly someone else's life. The life of a rocker boy turned terrorist that goes by the name Johnny. Now once again, I was forced to use the weapons provided to me, such as a minigun and Johnny's extremely unrealistically powerful pistol. But in this case, I don't really see this as a loss, as I'm not V in this scenario. I was, but only a bystander watching the memories of things that have already happened. Now that we were back in V-land, Johnny, the damn AI that was stored in that chip in my head, decided to start taking over my brain, thus bringing me back from the dead. Now that I was zombified, I crawled out of the landfill to meet our new friend, Takimara.
Help me. Quiet.
Wow, uncalled for, bro. When I regained consciousness, I wished I hadn't, as we were again in a car being tailed by some Arasaka gearheads. And as no surprise to anyone, this was another one of Cyberpunk's famous pistol-only partial cutscenes. And, just like before, doing nothing only led to more explosions. Though this time, I had a plan. Shoot the tires till they crash themselves. Eh? I'm not technically killing anybody if I'm just shooting tires, right? I suppose that doesn't really qualify as a plan, per se, but hey, it worked. And we survived yet another gun-only cutscene. And luckily, this would be the last. The last one for V, anyway. With an absolutely killer headache and an AI construct of an old rocker boy rattling around in my brain, I finally made it to Act 2. Now, all things considered, this is by far the longest section of the game, so I'll do my best to spare you of some of the more frivolous details along the way. I was once again finally released into the wild, so to speak, meaning there were lots of brand new bladed goodies for me to get my hands on. And one of them was tied to a main quest of sorts, so that's where I set my sights. Battling my way through countless gangsters and cyber psychos, I started to pick up some very useful perks for our bladed endeavors, such as faster dashing, bullet blocking, and thunderclap, which seriously changed the gameplay. As now, with every heavy attack, I can lunge forward from across the room straight into a massive hit. With that in my arsenal, I continued with the main questline, talking to just about everyone I could, trying to track down Evelyn Parker, the last person that was still probably alive that was also a part of the heist, as she might know how to get this Johnny problem out of my head. A few leads V and Johnny sniffed out got us to the clouds, a club of the not so YouTube friendly variety. After grilling some poor woman and a dude about Evelyn's whereabouts, I was told to find a man named Woodman. I made my way upstairs just past the guards, and just before I breached his office doors, I snuck into the adjacent dressing room where I found yet another iconic katana, the cocktail stick. With the new katana equipped, in all its vibrant pink glory, I had a very lengthy conversation with Woodman.
Well, aren't you the king of fuck?
Got all the info I needed and dipped out of the clouds as fast as possible. From there, I continued my journey to find Evelyn, and it wasn't long after that I found yet another iconic katana, just chilling in a forge of some factory. This one was one of my favorites, just based on the sheer damage output, and the cyber katana hybrid factor made it pretty nice to look at as well. Not only that, but the plasma edge actually had a chance of applying burning on enemies, which made it even more powerful than any of the previous katanas we've found thus far. Slicing and dicing through the rest of the cretins that stalked the halls of that place, we finally found Evelyn and took her back to Judy's place. After a lot of talking and lore development, it was clear that unfortunately Evelyn was gonna be a dead end. So, it was time to start looking for some other leads on getting Johnny out of my head. But before I continued with any of the main quests, it should be noted that I did a quick side quest where I saved a doctor from the inside of a fridge, and in return I got our fourth iconic katana, the scalpel. Now, everyone loves this katana, but honestly at the time I was having way too much fun with the rata to give it up, so I just added it to my collection for now. At this point in the story, there was pretty much 3 main quest lines that all needed to be completed, but not necessarily in any particular order. So I started with the shortest one, the Nomad's lead, and helped Pan Am retrieve her car and exact some much overdue revenge on the cave-dwelling scavs. After that, it was only a few more battles to which the Aldecaldo nomads chipped in, and we found Mr. Andrew Hellman. After a lot more lore dumping, one of the 3 quest lines was complete. At this point, Mr. Hands gave me a call regarding the infamous Netrunner crew, the Voodoo Boys. So I hopped on my bike and hightailed it to Pacifica, our little taste of what Miami would be like if it was on the West Coast. Confronting the meathead that was chilling behind the butcher counter, he begrudgingly led me to the Voodoo Boys' base of operations, where he then sent me on what I found out later was supposed to be a one-way trip to the Pacifica Mall. The animals, a gang of bodybuilding roiders, were the primary occupants of this place, and though they had the bronze, their small little brains couldn't keep up with the quick, panther-like reflexes of this master samurai. I even handled the first true boss fight with flying colors. In fact, I was so well equipped at this point that the AI kinda just gave up and let me keep wailing on them. After I spoke to the discount CIA agent that iced the Voodoo Boys' top dogs, he informed me that the big guy from earlier actually installed malware in my system that would ultimately lead to my demise. So after a lot of yakking and gum flapping, he removed the virus and freed the leader of the Voodoo Boys, whom I needed a word with. And in return, he could leave with his data. Now, I was just gonna let him go and ride it out, but I guess subconsciously I knew he was still up to some shady shit, as I accidentally bumped my left mouse button and sent bro to the Shadow Realm. Sure, I could've reloaded here, but I decided to trust my gut on this one, and plus it was kinda funny. So, I made my way back to the Backstabbers, and unfortunately, I still needed help from them, so I continued working with them for now. Though this part contained a lot more lore and story details, there wasn't much in the way of katana swinging, so we're just gonna move right along. After a sentient rogue AI known as Alt killed all of the Voodoo Boy Netrunners, she requested that I get her into Mikoshi, Arasaka's main network server. There, she would be able to remove Johnny and the chip. After battling my way through a horde of Voodoo Boys, Big Man was waiting for me in the church pews. Though I almost felt bad for him, as he quite literally didn't stand any chance in fighting the likes of this cyber samurai. And then I remembered all the good times we had together. Like when he installed that fatal malware in my head. Or that time he called me a dish rag.
Filthy rag.
What? Yeah, never mind. I'm gonna slice his ass up. With the information gathered and the Voodoo Boys wasted, Takimaro wasted no time in calling me to a meeting, where we discussed a way to infiltrate Arasaka headquarters and gain a one-on-one meeting with Hanaka Arasaka, second heir to the family business. The first step was simple enough. We had to scout out an Arasaka production facility and rig an upcoming parade that was flying right by Hanaka's known location. And like the stealthy samurai I am, I carefully infiltrated their base and was in and out of there with the guards none the wiser to our escapades. Now it was game time. With me and Takimara now in our strategically set positions, the parade was underway, which meant it was time for me to deliver some very stealthy assassinations. I took out each and every sniper that was spread out throughout the complex without a hitch.
Took out the soldiers say. That would be all.
Yes, apparently. Well done.
Now the only thing left was to remove the Netrunner and shut down Hanaka's security systems so Takimara could get that one-on-one meeting I mentioned earlier. But then a problem flew through the wall. Oda, Hanaka's bodyguard, a lethal, badass cyber samurai who obviously took inspiration from yours truly. But it was sad really, as I had thought I had finally met a worthy adversary, a bladesman no less. But no matter how fast Oda was, I was faster.
He will slay you like fish.
Upon dropping Oda in 0.3 seconds, Takimura chimed in, letting me know that Oda was a friend of his and to let him live. And even though the bastard tried to murder me, this samurai believed in honor. And Oda was only doing his job after all. So I let him live, for now. But I stole his badass katana as a consolation prize of sorts. And there it was. The single best katana in Cyberpunk 2077, Jinchu Maru, which loosely translates to the Loyal One. Not only did it boast an extremely high damage output right out the gate, but its clean carbon fiber handle and cold blackened finished steel edge makes it hands down one of the best looking katanas in the game as well. After my excitement subsided, I carried on with the mission, hijacking the security systems, only to watch Takimura completely choke right when he had his chance. I, of course, made haste to Takimura's quote-unquote undisclosed location, where he had abducted Hanaka to after his absolute failure of a job. But after some very uninteresting convos between the two of them, we were swatted by Arasaka. Now, since I fell through the floor, it is assumed that Takimura was a lost cause. But no, not today, for I was a samurai and it was my duty to save my fellow brother in arms. So I made my way back up, much to Johnny's dismay, and saved him from his almost certain demise, only for him to run away after we escaped the building. Wow, good stuff, man. And just when it seemed that things couldn't get any worse, I passed out from all the head trauma Johnny was causing in my brain, only to wake up on the wrong side of Pacifica. But at least I was safe. Ish. I'm wanted by Arasaka and actively being hunted by its agents. The heiress of the super evil mega corporation wants to have a chat with me, and V is still dying from the rocker boy in his skull. Yep, that means what you think it means. We finally arrived at Act 3, the final chapter. Now sure, I could just bulldoze my way through the end here, but I felt it was only right to tie up some loose ends we still had lurking about. I paid a visit to our old friend Vic and paid him back for his top-notch Ripper Doc services. And most importantly, I decided to do a few of Johnny's quests like chipping in, which bared some pretty sweet fruits as I got Johnny's samurai jacket, which, given the name, it perfectly fits our theme. And the special dialogue at the end of this quest gave me the option for the secret ending, which we'll see in a bit. It's a win-win. Besides, I even got to jam out a bit with the band. With all that out of the way, I did take some time to grind up a few levels and upgrade Jinchu Maru to Ultra Legendary status. You know, just in case. And once I felt truly ready to rock and roll, I met with Hanaka. Of course the conversation went as it always does, and Johnny grilled me for even considering working with Arasaka, even though the entire damn quest was unavoidable. In fact, this pissed V off so much that he had an aneurysm and passed out, only to awake in Vic's hot seat. After Vic gave his hard love pep talk, Jackie's girl Misty led me to his old thinking stop on the roof, where I sat alone to collect my thoughts. At this point, I had to decide what I wanted to do, and how the cyber samurai was to be remembered. I think a samurai would be more concerned with honor and clearing one's debts than the frivolous proceedings of an old rock star. But as much as it might have made sense to help Takemura avenge Saburo Arasaka, due to a sort of shared code of honor and all that, that path leads to one of the most bleak endings of the entire game, and bleak doesn't sound like an appropriate ending for our cyber samurai. So after an impromptu staring contest for a 5-minute eternity, Johnny propositioned another path. And although the chances of survival were slim, I took him up on his offer, which was seemingly a one-way trip through the front doors of Mikoshi in an attempt to upload Alt to Arasaka's main network, but alone. There's no honor knowingly leading others into a losing battle. V had already seen so much death around him, it was only right to face this last step alone. And if this samurai is to die, at least it'll be in the most intense, epic battle Night City had ever seen. As soon as I stepped through the doors of Arasaka Tower, I brandished my katana, and the battle was on. And although technically I was woefully underleveled for this, the loyal one's razor-sharp edge left not a soul standing.
Be careful.
And I died. Yep, might have just overplayed my hand a little. Alright, let's run it back.
So far.
Now that I had reached the main doors to Mikoshi's access point, there was only one thing that stood in our way, and it came in the form of a whole lot of metal. Atom Smasher, Johnny's arch nemesis. This battle was no walk in the park by any means, but man oh man was it the single greatest boss fight of the entire game. Teleporting back and forth, Adam was fast, but so was I. I slowly but surely cut him down little by little until the last drop of oil spilled from his vascular tubes. Once he dropped to his knees in defeat, I hit him with a quick, snarky yet poetic monologue.
Gotten good, I guess. Damn, it feels nice.
Then finally put him out of his metal misery. Now, all that was left to do was enter Mikoshi's main network and decide mine and Johnny's fate. And since I did all those quests earlier for Johnny, he and I were pretty chill, so there was no hard feelings as I took my seat back as my body's sole owner.
Goodbye, me. And never stop fighting.
The ending was pretty sweet as well, consisting of a stellar condo, ownership of the afterlife, and a journey into space for what was the greatest heist ever known to man, katana and all. And with that magnificent cutscene over, the main quest was complete, proving that yes, you can, sorta, beat Cyberpunk 2077 as a samurai. I really enjoyed doing this run, and I hope y'all enjoyed watching it. I know the few exceptions to the rules were kind of annoying, but I have a special challenge in mind now that should coincide nicely with Cyberpunk's cinematic mechanics. But that's a tale for another day, as I plan to step back into the Fallout series with this next run, so. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Also, if you guys have any ideas on what challenge runs I should try in the future, drop a comment down below. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and as always, remember to smile.
Before samurai committed to seppuku, they wrote Jisei,
a death poem. It contained their final thoughts about life, about death. I have read many of them of late. Some were truly works of beauty. Yet, I am not a samurai, so I bid you farewell with simple words. Rot in hell.